We now start with our lesson 14, the care of the vehicles, essentially. If you will remember, we had a deep explanation on what the subtle vehicles of man are during the beginning of the second phase of the course. But we explained, about the etheric double, the astral body, and the mental body eventually. Also, we have reference to it in the second lesson when we spoke in less detail on these vehicles. These are the vehicles that the monad has in order to be able to express life, both at mental and emotional levels, also at physical level and at vital level. These are instruments. This is the equipment, so to speak, the soul has in order to be able to unfold activity and therefore unfold consciousness as a result of the activity. Now the problem is that being that there are instruments of consciousness, if we may call them that, it is absolutely essential that we learn how to deal with them, to begin with, to identify them. The great majority of people in this world have no idea that they're not their minds. They even have a confusion between the mind and the brain, which is something that should never happen. We cannot afford to be ignorant about such an important subject as the subtle vehicles that accompany the physical one in our sojourn of what we call the evolution of the soul, the evolution of consciousness. It's fundamental then that we know, number one, that we have these vehicles, and number two, learning how to control them, understanding that they are with us, but they are not us. We are not our mind, we are not our emotions and desires, and we are not our physical body and its vitality. This is a fundamental tenet in theosophy. It must be understood very clearly before we go into anything else, that we are not these vehicles, but they are with us. We need to have them. We don't know how to think without a mind. We don't know how to feel without an astral body. And we don't know how to act, and we have no means of acting in the physical world without a physical vehicle and its corresponding vitality. This corresponds to what we know as a personality, that it is evanescent, it's temporary. Eventually the physical body disappears, as we all know. Then the etheric double disintegrates very quick. At time of the astral world, and we have disintegration of the astral body, and at time of the mental world, the mental sphere of the earth, and we have also a disintegration of the mental body. They are intended to disappear. There's no worries about that. But while they are existing and serving our purposes, it is fundamental for us to understand what they are and how they function. Why? Because we need them to last as much as possible, number one, and number two, in the best possible shape. This is very important. So this lesson has been incorporated to this workshop in order to instruct people on how to take care of these vehicles, what to do and what to avoid, if we want them to serve us properly. They must be understood, we must understand that they are not us, but that they are with us. Now, being that their energies are very powerful, of a cosmic nature, focalized on each human being, well, they are going to be very, very powerful, and they're going to be very difficult to control. However, control of this vehicles is, as I said before, fundamental. An individual who does not control his mind properly cannot control his life. The thoughts that will come will not be his, will be from his mind. The mind has no ethics, no principles. It's an energy. It's neither good or bad. It's simply that it just doesn't have those things. It cannot distinguish, the mind, even the most brilliant one. It cannot distinguish between wrong thoughts and adequate thoughts. It can never do that. It's not built for that. It doesn't have that capability. The one that makes the distinction between wrong thoughts and right thoughts is us, is the self that we are. We're supposed to use the mind in order to produce thoughts. Learning how to control the mind then is absolutely essential. Our relationship with our vehicles is of a karmic nature. When we come into incarnation, we receive exactly what we have done with our past lives, in terms of the things we have, in terms of the things we lack, in terms of the tendencies we have that we will be expressing, through our personality, during the new incarnation. It's fundamental then that we understand very clearly that we need to have the proper relationship with these vehicles. To begin with, we may start with the mind. This is a very powerful energy. When we do the exercise of trying to meditate and try to concentrate for 3 minutes on one single thing, just one thing, for 3 minutes, we discover to our surprise of the enormous difficulty involved. In the beginning, we cannot even pass 1 minute without all kinds of thoughts, most of them frivolous and absurd, bombarding us all the time. The mind will realize that we are trying to somehow quiet it down. It doesn't like the idea. It's been controlling our life for a long time. And it desires to control it, to continue to control it. It's used to it. It's like a little animal that we have somehow, allowed to do whatever it wants. Now we're telling it, no, you're not going to do what you want. You're going to do what we tell you, what I tell you. That is what you're going to do. When we are concentrating and trying to set our mind on one thing only, for 3 minutes we're telling the mind, shut up, be quiet. That's what we're doing, and it doesn't like it. So it will bombard us with all kinds of thoughts, as I said before. The key to it is to be patient. The first time I did that, I was a young man, and it was very difficult to go about 1 minute without being assaulted by all kinds of thoughts. It's complicated. The person who guided me on this, advised that I should try again and again and again, over and over, because he said it would take time. I said, how much time? He said, about, I don't know, it would be 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years. It's up to you. It depends on your interest. Everybody's different. And some people, there will be not much of a difficulty. In others, it will be very difficult. So, you sit down, in a comfortable position, and you concentrate your mind on one thing only. Keep doing it over and over. Eventually, it will work. It has worked in many people. It did work on me, personally. So I'm speaking from direct experience. I don't remember how long it took in my case. It must have been about 2 or 3 weeks before I was able to go about 3 minutes. But once you do, something quite extraordinary happens. For the first time, you get a feeling of joy. And that feeling of joy comes from the fact that apparently, when we quiet the mind, sort of like a door opens on top of us, and we're in touch for the first time in a conscious fashion with the real self that we are. It is a marvelous experience, something that everyone should have. One of the things that we need to have in our evolving process is the concept of who we really are, our real individuality, the self that we are. The great majority of people think that they are what is known as their personality. They think they are their mind, they think they are emotions and desires, and they think they are a physical body with a vitality that corresponds to it. That's what they think they are, because that is what they are aware of. We are aware that we think, we are aware that we feel, and we are aware that we act, and that we are vitalized. We are aware of those things. But the upper part, the superior part, the real part, the immortal part in us, we don't see that. We have to be told. But once we have been told, we have also advised, at least in theosophy, don't believe it. Experience it. Do something to really be able to investigate and determine if what we are telling you is in fact true. That's what we are told in theosophy. It's an invitation to think. That's what theosophy is. So once we're given the information, we are asked to explore it. That is what we do when we sit down and try to concentrate for 3 minutes on one thing only. We are exploring, essentially. And eventually what happens is that, we are able to go about 3 minutes and then experience something quite extraordinary. It cannot be described in any possible way. It is a strictly individual experience, a sacred one in many ways, and a magnificent one also. If you do this exercise, even if it doesn't work in the beginning, you persist, because persistence is the key here. If you do this exercise, you find yourself with an experience that you will never forget. You will for the first time realize who you really are and not who you thought you were. This is an important thing to remember. So our respect for the mental body is fundamental, and our control over it even more fundamental. We need to be able to put the mind under our control. The moment we do that, we will have our life under control. Decisions will be ours. The difference between our decisions, our thoughts, and those of the mind is that we have the ethics. The mind doesn't. So therefore, in our rationality, in our rational process, which is what distinguishes us from animals, we are going to have the possibility of determining what is right and what is wrong in terms of our thoughts. Thoughts are a very important thing. We already studied that in the past lessons, because they really are what originate everything at emotional and at physical level. All those two things, the emotional and the physical, happen as a result of thought. So having an orderly, correct and lofty thinking process will ennoble our astral body, our desires and emotions, and also the good functioning of our physical body. It will last longer, and it will be mostly free from diseases of any kind, which are brought about by the disharmony in which we find our physical vehicle as a result of a disharmony of the mind and a disharmony of the astral body as well. All these vehicles need to be harmonized, but the whole thing starts with the mind. So doing that exercise is the best thing you can do if you want to meditate, because there's no meditation possible if you don't know how to concentrate. So concentration is fundamental. Once we have reached concentration perfectly, then we can meditate. We can be in a meditative state, as it is known. And it's fundamental that we do that at least 15 minutes a day. That will bring about the aligning of our vehicles, and eventually the control of this whole equipment that we call the vehicles of expression, vehicles of consciousness, which are the mind, emotions and desires, vitality and physical body. Put this quaternary under our control and we'll be on our way. We won't have to go through as many incarnations as people normally go if we understand clearly and we do this very simple exercise that I have just mentioned. Now, once the mind falls under control, it will control by itself the astral body. We can use the mind to control emotions and desires. The astral body, like the mind, is an energy. What it does, it fosters emotions and desires in us, bring them through the etheric double into the nervous system. It doesn't have any ethics either. It's just an energy. Energies have no ethics. This is an important thing to remember. Okay, dame un segundito. Espera un momento, espera un poco. En consecuencia, para tener un control sobre los... Consequently, in order to have a good control over emotions and desires, which is essential for an orderly life, we need to have control of the mind. The mind will take care of the astral body very effectively when we use it in order to control our desires and our emotions and allow it to express only those which are useful, lofty, and appropriate. It must be remembered that the astral body is also a very powerful energy, and it has a complete range of desires and emotions, from the lowest, most animalistic passions to the highest and noblest feelings. It's in our hands, it's our decision to make the vehicle into what we want it to be, to allow it to do what it needs to do, and to express only those desires and emotions which are, positive and useful and adequate, not destructive or negative. We have these options in life, but what some of us contend is it's impossible for us to really put these things under control unless we know what generates it, unless we know the laws, the principles that guide these energies. People need to know we have an astral body. People need to know that our desires and emotions, especially those we feel ashamed about, which sometimes happens, are not from us. from the vehicle that expresses that. This vehicle, this energy that we have, that nature has given us to express emotion and desire, operates on its own, because it's an energy, and energy is a dynamic thing. It will move on its own if we don't move it ourselves, if we don't put ourselves under control. Once we're determined, once the vehicle realizes that we are determined not to permit it to function on its own, it will give up and will be a docile and useful instrument. The mind, which is already under control, can be of great help along those lines. Once meditation is achieved, normally, this helps very much the integration of the vehicles, the alignment, with the self. And consequently, for the first time, we become really in control of our personal life. This is not something that you see very often. The great majority of people think that they are in control of their lives, but they're not. When they look upon their lives and look at the past and they realize the mistakes, sometimes they ask themselves, we all ask ourselves, how could I possibly have made that mistake? How could I possibly have had those thoughts? How could I possibly have been so mistaken in the decision that I took? It was not our decision. It was not our mistake. It was a mistake of our vehicles. They were the ones that forced us into acting that way. And we thought it was us. For thoughts and emotions and desires to be ours, we need to put these vehicles under control. This is the most important thing. And the way to do it is through, as I said before, through meditation. Meditation, it was already explained in the previous chapter. Meditation, it's not something that we do. It's something that happens. All we do is set up the conditions so that they will happen. That's all there is to it. Quietness, not being interrupted, and orienting our mind. It must be then be made very clear that in order for us to have control of our lives, control of the mind and control of the emotions and desires are fundamental. This is the most important thing. It's the powerful energies the universe has placed at our disposal so that we can think and be motivated to act. Putting them under control, consequently, is fundamental. Having disposed of that, now we'll touch on the question of the physical body. Now, I usually ask my students, myself being a student as well, to study anatomy when they're interested in esotericism. They look at me with surprise because they say, wait a minute, here we're talking about the subjective aspects of life. So the study of subjective vehicles such as the mind and emotions and desires, the mental and the astral bodies, is recommendable and it's appropriate, that's what we do. But what would be the purpose of studying something objective, like the physical body is, which does not belong to subjective life, therefore it's not part of this philosophy? That is a profound error. It's a great mistake to think of the physical body as something separate from the other bodies. Essentially what we do when we speak of the bodies of man, we are talking about a whole structure which will have a mental aspect, an emotional aspect, a vital aspect, and a physical aspect. But it is really, we separate them and give them different names in order to study them, fundamentally, to make it very clear. But we're talking about a whole, a complete integration. So, it's impossible to divorce the physical body from its subjective counterparts. We cannot do that. Whatever the mind and the emotions and desires, do, will have a direct and decisive effect on the physiology and the reactions of the physical body. There's no two ways about that. It's a clinical fact that sometimes when someone has a very intense, incidence of anger caused by some occurrence that takes place, you get a man very violent, bad temper, that really has a big explosion of anger. And sometimes it goes down, with apoplexy. Apoplexy is a kind of, attack on the brain. Somehow a vein in the brain will explode, will break, and the man will have, a serious problem as a result of that. Now, The guy didn't hit hit or anything. It was an energy released by the mind, negative energy, the anger, that produced on the physical body such impact that it broke a vein or an artery. And that man has now a cerebral hemorrhage, and he may die as a result of what? An emotion that was uncontrolled. So the emotions will have, as well as the mind, a decisive impact on the physical body at different levels. We have to be exceedingly careful with that. Knowing the physiology of the physical body is fundamental. Why? Because we will eventually come to grips with feeding habits. We have to know exactly what is it that is convenient, useful for the physical body to keep healthy and live a long life. We need to know about that. Culturally speaking, we have many wrongdoings, so to speak. Things that we eat or we should never eat. Things for which the physical body is not made to eat. And that will be deleterious to his health. And it will shorten his life, and bring about diseases of all kinds. One of the worst mistakes that we can do, and which is in the Occident at least culturally acceptable and adequate, is the consumption of red meat. In general, the meat of animals, the flesh of animals, should not be eaten. It's not the normal and adequate food for mankind. The human body is not made for that. We just impose it on it, that's all. And we pay a price for it. Let's study what the position of the physical body is, what its shape it is, and what we have as instruments that allow us to feed ourselves. We have short and round teeth, not like the predators who have, sharp teeth in order to be able to mash on meat effectively, in order to eat it. No, we don't have that. We have very round teeth, short and round. Our hand has 4 fingers and one that faces them, which is the short finger that we have here. So we can pick up fruits from the trees, and vegetables from the ground. So that is a natural food, vegetables and fruit, grains as well. Not all grains, but the great majority of them, are very healthy and very appropriate. They contain all the vitamins, all the proteins, all the amino acids, everything that we really need to feed the physical body properly, we already have. We don't need to resort to cruelty by killing animals and then eating them. It's the worst thing we can do. One of the first things that today cardiologists will ask their patients is how much red meat are they eating, these patients. That's one of the first things they will ask, because it has been discovered that there is a direct relationship between heart attacks and meat consumption, red meat consumption especially. Meat of chicken, other fowl in general, are not that bad. The effect is not that bad. But still, it implies killing animals. Now let us understand once and for all, from a point of view of theosophical ethics, animals are our younger brothers in the ladder of evolution. Our relationship with them should be a proper one, a noble one. We should help them evolve. We should respect them, aid them when they are in bad shape, whether injured or sick or whatever. Do our very best, in other words, to make their life pleasant, and to help in their development. We are their older brothers. They are younger brothers. With younger brothers, what you do is you try to help them. When you have a small brother in the family, a little kid, you already have more or less a teenager or an adult, you do your best to help your little brother. This is what we should be doing with animals, rather than perpetrating the cruelty and the brutality with which we treat them, the result of wrong religious teachings, which have told us animals have no souls. By so saying, they imply that animals don't feel. But animals do feel pain, just like a human being. They have an astral body the way we do. The same thing. Their bodies, physiologically speaking, similar to ours. Our physical body is an animal physical body. It's the same. The physiology is the same. They have red blood, they have nerves, they feel, they suffer. Now, by telling us religions amazingly, telling us that it's okay to kill animals and it's okay to eat them. They are perpetrating a real crime against the animal kingdom. This is something that should never ever happen. The commandment is very clear, not only in the Judeo-Christian tradition and Ten Commandments. In any religion that can really respect itself, you will find the injunction, thou shalt not kill. It does not say, well, thou shalt not kill, but animals is okay because they have no souls. It doesn't say any of that. It doesn't say, thou shalt not kill, but, in war, no problem. Go over there and you can kill your enemy and torture him or do whatever you want to. It's war. It's okay. It doesn't say any of that. It says, thou shalt not kill. Period. That's what it is. We have no right to do that. We have no right to take the life of anything. There's a principle in the Brahmanical doctrines which speaks of ahimsa. The word means harmlessness. Conducting our life in a manner which avoids harmlessness to anyone is the proper way of living. If what we really want is to advance and diminish the amount of incarnations, we better hold on to that principle. We need to be able to respect life. In whatever its manifestations, we need to respect life. That we have a right to defend ourselves when our own life is threatened, that's another story. Of course, that's common sense. But fundamentally, to go around killing animals to eat them is the worst thing we can do, both spiritually and physically. We do a great deal of damage to ourselves, and we've set ourselves backwards in the scale of evolution. We should never, under any circumstances, do that. We have to start identifying once and for all the right feeding for the physical body. Take, for instance, what happens to our digestive system. Amazingly, the small intestine in a human body has nearly 7 meters of extension. It is particularly long. In the case of a royal Bengal royal tiger, for instance, which is an enormous animal, the very big cat, the intestine is just 2 meters long. The animal eats, they are predators, they eat meat, they feed on that. There's a reason for that. Nature has its own way of doing that. And the animal acts that way not because it's a criminal or indifferent to the suffering of other animals. It's because nature has imposed that parameter on that, probably to prevent the expansion of just too many animals in given species. So there are predators. They are not morally responsible. They follow what nature imposes on that. That's a parameter. And nature has imposed on that. So therefore, this being the case, there's no moral connotations there. But with us, it's different because we know better. And nature does not impose on us anything. We make choices and we determine what we're going to eat. Killing animals to eat them is the worst thing that we can do. It will delay our evolution, it will put obstacles to it, we will require more incarnations, and we will compromise our health. It is a fact of life that vegetarians are very healthy people and live a long life. Unless karma says otherwise because of past lives or whatever. In general, the great majority of vegetarians are pretty free from diseases and live a long life. So there's something to take into account. Now, there are some things which can be recommended here, but it must be understood that when we're talking about alternative medicine or alternative feeding habits, we're not clones, human beings. Some things go very well with some people, with some bodies. Others don't go that well. None of these things are really harmful to the body, but some may be quite useless. They will not represent the degree of feeding benefits that we represent in other people. We're pretty much alike, but we're not exactly alike. As I said before, there are no clones in the universe, and much less clones among human beings. That doesn't exist. On the alternatives to medicine, this doesn't mean that we should discard allopathic methods. Regular medicine has a lot of merit, and it has made a lot of advancements. The problem with the great majority of medicines which are approved in different laboratories of the world, in different countries, is that they have side effects, inevitably. Some of them have been magnificent. Some of vaccinations, for instance, against polio, that sort of thing, they did away with terrible diseases. But the fact is that we keep finding new diseases. We get rid of some of them, and we find new ones. Why? It's a karma. Why? Because in order for us to investigate the disease, what we do is we bring animals to labs and we open them alive. We put the knife on them when they are alive. We cannot do it when they are dead, because in that case we won't be able to find what we're looking for. So vivisection is something that is known as being able to open the body of an animal when he is alive. Imagine the pain, the horror that that represents. So we find what we're looking for, and eventually we develop a remedy or whatever medication for the disease in question that we're investigating, and eventually a new disease comes up, which is even worse. If we think we will violate nature that way and apply the law of cruelty, indifference to those who suffer, that there will be no price to pay for that, that is being sadly mistaken. Karma is the law. It has no memory of any kind to be lost. Remembers everything. It will be an effect of causes that we plant. There will be no individual judge passing judgment on us and punishing us for killing animals. That won't happen. We don't have anybody like that in the universe. But what we do have is this law. And this law will make sure that we pay for what we do. We bring pain to others, we will experience it ourselves. That is the law. It has nothing to do to change it. I think it's a blessing that we have that law. It teaches us, hey, be careful. Whatever you're going to do it without hurting anyone, without creating pain. Animals do suffer, and very intensely. And we have no right to do to them what we have been doing to them, as culturally and religiously accepted as appropriate and normal. It is inappropriate and it's profoundly abnormal, and we should stop it as soon as possible. It is not a question of an opinion, it's a question of a lifetime of investigation in the case of some of us who have reached this conclusion after observing what happens by the continued violation of this law of love that we owe, especially to the lower species that coexist with us and the planet. This is the most important thing to remember. So, as alternatives to allopath medicine, which as I said before has its own merits, I will not take it that way, we also have the Reiki method. The Reiki method consists in simply allowing the etheric excess that we receive continually prana from the atmosphere. The sun saturates the atmosphere of the earth with prana, with this vitality. The human body absorbs it. It has the mechanism to absorb it, and it absorbs continually. So it's sort of discharging it because we have too much. It's discharged to the head, from the feet and the hands. So when somebody is very ill, his own etheric double, which is the one that does the job to recover the physical body, is very low in energy. When we approach that person with our hands, even with our physical body, close by enough, that etheric double of the patient will absorb that energy, and become revitalized, and then fight successfully against the disease. So it's an indirect healing, if you want to put it this way. We're just charging the battery, so to speak, because that's what the etheric double is. It's a battery that gathers prana, to use it to help the physical body, the physical tissue. When a person is very ill, that is very low in energy, so what we do is when we approach it and put the hands, what we're doing is delivering part of our energy to recharge their own etheric double, so that they can do a better job. So that's what it is, the Reiki system. Direct healing by the mind, done by the mind, requires a very powerful mind. And it's a complicated thing that you need authorization from higher authorities, so to speak, before you intervene a patient that, for instance, has a tumor, a brain tumor or a lung tumor or a stomach tumor. We need to first find out if it would be proper to help remove that tumor. By means of the power of the mind, which under control is a very powerful instrument, we can dissolve that tumor. We can do that. It is possible to be done. It's been done. But we need to know first whether it would be appropriate. From the point of view of karma, sometimes it is required that that person should go to that thing, and we have no right to stop it. It's an important thing to remember. Acupuncture is an ancient Chinese resource that we have also, which is pretty effective in most diseases. But like with everything else, it will work very well in some, it will work not that well in others. Generally, it's, I would say, 90% effective, but it also depends on the type of disease. So there are limitations to it, but it's very, very effective. The Tesla plates are something very, very unknown, especially in oxygens. Something that should be investigated. It is my recommendation that you go into the internet and find out about the Tesla plates. This is anodized aluminum plates, which are plates of the body in the area where the problem is, and normally the difficulty disappears to the extent that sometimes even cancers get recovered, get eliminated, tumors dissolved and so on. Nikola Tesla was an extraordinary man in many ways, not very well known because there's never been too much information about him, but in practically every field he has something to contribute. In this particular case, in the medical field, his plates, are remarkable. They can be obtained through internet also. They are not expensive and they can be very, very effective. Now, it's been said that pyramids, also have, pyramid therapy, is based on the fact that pyramids, when constructed according to the measurements of the Cheops pyramid near Giza in Egypt, what we have is, a structure that somehow does away with oxidation. So whatever you put inside of a pyramid will dry up, but it will not decompose. And it has a deleterious effect, all kind of saprophyte, what they call saprophyte, which is those microorganisms which are damaging to the body. It kills them because they feed on oxidation. And when oxidation is done, they just have no way of reproducing. So in many cases, pyramidal, therapy is very effective. As I said before, it can be very effective in many people. It may be not that effective in others. There are limitations to these alternatives. I repeat, this alternative does not mean that you should abandon allopathic practices, that's allopathic medicine. Everything, all of these methods to cure diseases have their own merits, and to use them all is the appropriate thing. When one doesn't work, you use the other one, and something will work along those lines. In terms of our feeding habits, as I said before, meat is out of the question. Flesh eating in general, whether fowls or whether animals, is not something that we should do. Vegetables and fruit is a natural feeding thing. Now, with fruit, we have to be careful. Some people have followed a diet, based only on fruit in order to lose weight. The result was diabetes. We cannot do that. We have to be careful. The consumption of fruit is adequate. It's a natural food, but we should be careful and combine it also with vegetables and grain. That's what we think, the most important thing. Some of these grains are very adequate, in the sense that they favor intestinal movement and everything. To investigate, what internet will provide very detailed information in terms of the benefits of some of the vegetables that we use. Like avocados and bananas, for instance, have enormous nutritive conditions that we should help. Some people have said that you could live only on avocados or only on bananas because they are so complete. Bananas have 3 types of sugar, and they are really remarkable in terms of, feeding resource. So therefore, those should be, also always considered. Now, there are 3 things, which I think are particularly decisive and important to keep our health going on in this particular case. The first one is what is called flaxseed. Flaxseed should be put, in the in the mixer in order to, make it, soft and so on, and then mix it with fruit and so on, and the blender, and then you may put a little sugar in it, a little honey in it, or whatever, and drink it. It's very, very adequate, especially for the digestive system. It's excellent. One thing that I found particularly splendid, not only in terms of the digestive system, but also surprisingly in terms of stopping diabetes, and high blood pressure in some people, is birdseed. It appears that people think birdseed is for the birds. Well, put it in the blender again with water and so on. Five soup spoons of birdseed in water, about 6-7 ounces, and mix it together. Then you have to strain it through a colander, metal colander, and then a cloth colander, the one used for coffee, for sifting coffee. That's, easy to buy, it's very cheap, and so on. And what you get is a kind of whitish milk that has no taste. It has a pleasant taste, but it's not sweet at all. Don't add anything sweet to it because that will kill the enzymes. It's full of enzymes and vitamins. Magnificent. It has a great effect over blood pressure and over diabetes as well. It's kept, it keeps them, alive. They're very, very effective. But as I said before, it may not work in some people. We're not clones, as I said before. What works well in some does not work in others. I would say that 80% of people could use this food in their products, birdseed and flaxseed, effectively for themselves. If they're having problems, especially on the digestive tract, they're very effective, both of them, in that. Then one thing that is very common is acidity. The pH in the great majority of people is unbalanced because of the things we eat, which are inappropriate. Meat, fresh food and then fried food and other things, bring about a complete discombobulation in the digestive system. In order to put it back into place and to bring the pH to the right level, the body needs to have a level of acidity. But once it's reached that level of acidity, it shouldn't go above that, because what we get is then stomach acidity, and that is maybe conducive to cancer. It has been, in fact, determined by several universities doing the investigation that one of the causes of cancer is an excess in the acid level of the body. Wrong pH. To keep it right is the simplest, most simple method in the world, and it's a pleasant one also. 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate in about 6 ounces of water, and with some lemon on it. You squeeze a lemon on it, and it will bring you a drink pretty much like Alka-Seltzer. That's the way, at least it tastes to me. And you drink it once in the morning and once in the evening when you're suffering from acidity. And in a question of days, acidity will disappear. It's an alkaline remedy which is quite remarkable to leave the pH where it's supposed to stay. Not farther, not higher, or not low. So that is, adequate. Eliminate things, we already spoke about meats, fried foods, pasta, once a week maybe. More, it's not appropriate. All things that have to do with fermented food and that sort of thing should be eliminated. Eggs should be eaten only, cooked, not fried or scrambled and so on. They're very nice and we like to eat them, say 3 or 4 eggs a week, no problem whatsoever, but try to eat them boiled. That is the best way to eat eggs, The egg is a protein that's difficult for the stomach to digest. But when we eat it, boiled, then it's easier than that. All these recommendations, I'm not a doctor. They are the result of personal experience, what I have read and what I have observed in myself and others. All those of us who have suffered from a certain point of bad health due to our mistakes, have discovered this way of keeping the body in better shape. And these are the things which I have been able to observe are very useful for the physical body. But I repeat, I'm not a doctor. I'm just recommending what in my view is effective and has results and has no side effects. But as I said before, once you consume any of these products, you have to observe your body, see how it feels, and see whether it's working or not. Well, it might not be working, it might be even damaging. We never know. We're not clones, as I said again. So therefore, observe your body, see the reaction that it has. In most cases, these natural remedies are very, very effective and should be followed. So, we have then now determined how to deal with the care of the vehicles. Okay, control of the mind, which in turn will control emotions and desires. Keep the vitality going by exposure to the sun, not more than 20 minutes, and with proper, sunscreens and that sort of thing. That's very important. And the physical body. With indications we've been given, you may also get into the internet and find out, an encyclopedia, and find out all the things that really appropriate and those which are deleterious for the physical body. We should consume only that which we should consume to keep it in shape. A physical body in shape is fundamental for our inner advancements. We cannot be distracting energies trying to somehow keep this body going when we're doing everything wrong to it, including our feeding habits. We have to be careful along those lines and respect the body. Respecting the physical body and avoiding, needless to say, anything that has to do with drugs, cigarettes, or alcohol, and that sort of, all these addictions are absolutely deleterious to the physical body and should be eliminated right there. If we don't, in the next incarnation we'll come up into the incarnation with a body that is very sickly, with having all kinds of chronic problems of health and that sort of thing, even if you come from very healthy parents. Disrespectful for the physical vehicle has a price to be paid, and karma will take care of it. It's a way of telling us, listen, this is a body given to you for free. It's essential for your advancement. It provides the restriction or limitation required for the unfoldment of consciousness. Respect it. Take good care of it. Make it last as long as possible. And everything will be fine. In the next incarnation, you'll have a very good body, even when you come from sickly parents, because karma will take care of that. Respecting our vehicles, knowing who they are, how they are, that we are not them, but that we have them, is absolutely fundamental. In that, we will explain exactly what we can expect in the future. In the next class, we shall discuss the question of the future of humanity.